everybody. Everyone seems a bit sleepy this morning. Lots of meetings have been happening in the evenings, I know. So we'll try to keep this one short so we can extend the morning break if possible. I need another coffee. I don't know about anybody else. Okay, so performance characterization. This is one of our official community work streams that's been running probably about 18 months now. At the start of the work stream, we set ourselves a lot of objectives. Those objectives are documented in detail. So if anybody wants to understand how we're thinking about improving the performance of the Mojaloop platform, how we're thinking about testing that in a repeatable manner, what we're doing about publishing those results and informing people in the community about how to get the best out of their deployments, then please come and join the workstream or one of the workstream calls. There's a Slack channel on the Mojaloop Slack that you'd be welcome to join and ask any questions on. For this PI, I don't know if everyone in the room is aware of the term PI. I've heard a number of people mention it over the last couple of days, but I don't think anyone's explained it yet. So in the Mojaloop community, we run our work in multiple work streams, but in time box chunks. And each time box chunk is called a program increment, and we shorten that to PI. So a program increment lasts roughly 4 months. There's approximately 3 in a year. And within each PI, at the start, we set a number of objectives for each work stream. We iteratively work in typically an agile software engineering process over the course of that PI. And by the end of the PI, we will hopefully have achieved most of those objectives, if not all of them. And the outputs of those work streams typically get bundled into the release process that you saw Sam show earlier this morning. So at the start of this program increment, this work stream set itself a couple of objectives. Our number one objective was to demonstrate that the Mojaloop platform was capable of achieving 1,000 transactions per second, demonstrated on minimal hardware. The definition of what we call minimal is open for discussion, but there is a definition of that written down if you're interested. With less than 1% of those transfers taking more than 1 second to clear. We have met that objective. In fact, we've exceeded it. The detailed information on those performance results is available on GitHub. So please reach out to me after the session if you want some links to go and have a look at it. We're trying to improve the way that we've documented those. And we're also in the process of building documentation to help understand how to performance tune a Mojaloop deployment. It's pretty normal for hub operators, people that deploy Mojaloop, even in development environments, to have their own preferences about their infrastructure configuration. And that's understandable. And it's something that Mojaloop set as one of its objectives, was to be able to be deployed on multiple different configurations and still work and achieve good performance, scalability, reliability, and resilience. So we have been trying to understand the factors that affect the performance of Mojaloop in terms of overall throughput, latency, which was an issue brought up in discussion yesterday as well, to provide guidance to people in the community on how to understand why their platform performs in a certain way and to be able to make adjustments to extract the maximum performance possible on their given hardware profile. So that documentation is underway. There's been a considerable amount of effort put in this PI. Oh, I went the wrong way, sorry. So in particular, over the last 4 months or so, with help from members of the community, Infotechs, shout out to them. They've put a considerable amount of effort into this work stream. They have multiple on-premise hardware sets that they've been running performance and optimization activities on over the last 4 months. They've gathered a considerable amount of data. In particular, we're focused on the configuration around Kafka and the topology of prepare and fulfill topics and the scale out of the handlers that deal with the messages being published onto those topics. So as I said, we've begun to orchestrate those learnings as input into a model to understand how Mojaloop performs under various different configuration scenarios. So that write-up is in progress. It's likely to take some weeks before we have anything. There's a considerable amount of data that needs processing and a considerable amount of collaboration on the documentation itself before it becomes published. But you should expect that in the coming weeks, certainly in the first half of the next PI. But the second thing I want to talk about, oh, I see there's an error on my slide. I've got 2 number 1s. I do apologize for that. But in response to some feedback that we've had from adopters around the world, there's some preliminary work been happening on a white paper to talk about many aspects of the performance of the Mojaloop platform. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Julie, who's going to talk to you a little bit about that white paper. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so perhaps like let me add a few things as well, right? So I think when we talk to potential adopters, and we heard it yesterday, right? Like performance is always one of the key questions and main concern as well. So to address this question, we actually decided to work on a white paper, and the white paper will have 2 phases. So the first phase will be about like doing some performance measurement. And not only I would say measuring the actual performance of the system, but also like stress testing the system and being able to understand when the system breaks. Yesterday, we heard as well that there are different deployment models that adopters are considering on-prem and in the cloud. So what we're looking at is actually a set of KPIs that will be measured in different deployment configuration. So right now, we are looking for labs to be able to run this measurement. So ideally, we would like a AWS lab, a GCP lab, and an Azure lab to perform exactly the same measurement and then do the same on-prem. So what we'll do is we have defined a protocol around the number of transactions we want to inject, when we want to do lookup at the same time, if we want to initiate settlement cycle. Again, really stress testing the system to see the limit. And also when it comes to performance, really measuring how long does each phase take, and also from an end-to-end perspective, how long would it take, making some assumption when there is asynchronous calls. So I know James mentioned it as well, that we are looking for more contributors to the workstream. To be fair, I'm surprised this workstream is not overcoded, considering that performance is definitely one of a key concern for every single adopter. So in terms of timelines, right now we are working on securing the labs. We'll definitely have a meeting to present to the work stream the KPIs we're thinking of measuring. This would be a great opportunity for everyone to contribute, and potential adopters that need more information in this space to convince I would say the board or the overall organization to use Mojaloop. Please join the meeting and provide your feedback so that you'll have the measures that you need in the labs. And then we'll write the white paper, and I guess it will be nice as well to get the community reviewing the white paper. In terms of timelines, like James mentioned it, we are looking to publish a first version of the timeline for the next convening. this is a very short period of time, considering that there is the holiday season during this PI as well. So again, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, every contribution will be very much welcome.
Julie. Thank you, Julie. Just one final comment before we move to the break, I think, next, Timian, is that there are adopters in the room today who have conducted performance and stress testing on their actual deployment of Mojaloop. So if you're interested to understand what kind of typical performance you can expect, what they've achieved in their scenario, please go and talk to those guys. They may be willing to share some insights with you. Okay, so just before we end, does anybody have any questions?
I guess, like, can I add something as well for the people who want some performance testing? Like, could you please get in touch, because it will be very interesting to see your preliminary result and how you conducted your testing, just to inform our process on the white paper.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, James. This is Pedro. I'm here. One question regarding the results. Can you clarify on the cluster size and characteristics, and also the cost of that cluster where you achieved the 1,000 transfers per second?
I'm just looking to see if Brian is in the room. Yeah, so that 1,000 TPS was achieved on 5 physical nodes. I don't have the exact specs for those nodes on me right now, but Brian Schneider from Infotech can give you the full spec and the full set of test results and the conditions, the number of Kubernetes nodes and how they were configured.
Okay, cool. Would be great to have an idea of the general total cost.
Yeah, understood. Yeah. Five mid-level servers is a rough estimate that I can give you right now. And they weren't brand new servers, they were 1 generation old.
Thanks.
And thanks for your question, actually. Like, that's also it's a great segue to also mention that I forgot to mention that obviously the last part of the white paper will be some recommendation around, like, deployment and what is infrastructure required. So thank you for your question.
Just a couple of things that I'd like to add, really as wishes for the future of the workstream. First of all, as more and more people are deploying actual Mojaloops, we will need to make sure that when significant new releases of Mojaloop, either with additional functionality or improved performance, come out, we are producing, as part of our release notes, ways to ensure that people who already have the implementations can get the correct performance out of their installations when they install the new software. And the second point is that I remember from my time when I was closely involved with performance testing that one of the most important things is the test data set. And to ensure that the test data set is sufficiently wide and sufficiently varied to really be testing all of the different aspects of the performance of the system. So I guess there needs to be, first of all, some part of the work stream that is thinking about what that might be like, and second, something that's producing a standard test data set which can be used by everybody who wants to test the performance of a Mojaloop system.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, the list of objectives for this work stream is extensive. In previous convenings, I have put the list up on a slide, but it results in very small, unreadable writing. That is published, it is available, so please reach out if you're interested in seeing that. I'll share that with you, Michael, after the session. One of those objectives is to, well, there's 2 objectives there that are important, I think, to mention to answer your point. One objective is to insert performance testing into our CI pipelines for every component. So every repo, every microservice, we have an objective to add performance tests to our CI pipelines. Not necessarily to block a PR being merged if performance drops, but so we can understand how code changes affect the performance before they get merged into the main branch. That's objective number one. Objective number two is to add more extensive performance testing to our release process. So before we make a major or an incremental release as part of the process that Sam showed earlier, we want to run extensive performance tests end to end across the whole system, covering a number of different scenarios, to be able to publish those test results in our release note. So an adopter, the community, can understand how the performance of each release varies over time. Yes, Michael, back to you. Could we get a microphone to Michael, perhaps?
Sorry, what I wanted to emphasize was not so much the way the system performs in itself, though that is important, but rather the sorts of additional notes that people who have existing installations, and we've seen this morning how in Rwanda, the configuration of an installation has been tailored to the specific requirements of that market, how changes to Mojaloop might impact specific installations, and to give people pointers and suggestions as to how they might want to tune their particular installations in order to make sure that they get the full benefit from improvements to the product.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. I think that the answer to that is an entire discussion in of itself that we don't have time for today, unfortunately. I've just been told that we are over time, so we're eating into coffee break.
Can I just add perhaps something like, Michael, to your point, like two things, right? Around the data, 100%, like it's the data that we're going to inject are critical. And for this, like as a foundation, we'll actually use the injectors that Infitex are using. They kindly, like, accepted that we use the tool. So we'll publish this. Please have a look at the data and provide any feedback that like, you have. And the second thing is around, like, doing more consistently performance testing. I think what will happen is a subset of the measures that we will establish for the white paper will constitute what is going forward a regression test to make sure that on a release you don't have any performance degradation. For the rest, it will be specific to a lab environment, because like we are not planning to maintain the lab for a very long period of time, at least at this stage.
Thanks, everybody. I'm going to hand back to Simeon now.
Thank you so much. Round of applause for them. So we are now at break time, but just before we go, we have two giveaways. One has already happened. Sam, is Sam in the room? Yeah, Sam, please come up front. And then James, sorry, don't go too far. Just come back up. As Sam is coming up front, where's Sam? Today we have an opportunity for you to win a Raspberry Pi. If you don't know what that is, all you need to know, it's not food. It sounds like food, but I assure you it's not food. So James, would you please give them information about how they can get their hands on one?
Yes. Okay. So in the session this afternoon, I think it's this afternoon, it might even be after the break, or this afternoon, we're going to demonstrate the integration toolkit that's a kind of new part of our product. It's going to run on some low-cost hardware, and the low-cost hardware is a single board PC that's about this big, very small single board PC that runs a Linux operating system. It's called a Raspberry Pi. We're going to give it away. If you can guess how many transactions per second, all 3 Mojaloop transfer phases, that we can push through that Raspberry Pi during a test of pushing 1,000 transfers. If you can guess how many transfers per second we can push through that, then you can win the Raspberry Pi. The closest guess to the answer that we get when we run the performance test live on stage will win the device.
Awesome. Thank you, James.
Can I just add that I know the technical people in the room now are going to say, well, I've got 1,000 questions that will inform my answer. The details of some details of the test and the specifications of the hardware that's being used, etc. They're on a printed sheet out at the registration desk. So when we go out to coffee break, have a look at that sheet, read the information, and then make an educated guess.
James, just one second, not 1 second, but one small question. To confirm, you'll be running this performance test live, yes?
Yes, it will be a
And
live
the
performance.
winners will know whether, yeah.
Awesome. So the question, yes, Calvin.
Could you maybe the specs, maybe you could post them on that screen during the break?
Oh, that's a very
Because
good
there are
idea.
only 2 sheets outside
Awesome.
there, and we are quite a number.
We'll do that. So the task is very simple. A Raspberry Pi is a small, tiny computer that can fit on the palm of your hand. That's what the Raspberry Pi is. The question that you need to guess is this: how many transactions per second can we get through to the Raspberry Pi? The closest guess wins the Raspberry Pi. Outside at the reception desk, at the registration desk, sorry, there are write-ups, including a picture of the little Raspberry Pi. You can read that through, and next to those, you will find a sheet of paper where you can put in your name, your email address, and your guess. How many transactions per second can we push through a little device called a Raspberry Pi that you can hold on the palm of your computer, on the palm of your hand? Right?
Yes, correct. And
Awesome.
that little device costs less than $100. And
Yes.
I'll explain the significance of the test later in
Awesome.
the session.
Excellent. We'll be giving away that Raspberry Pi today on this stage. So, Sam?
Yeah, I actually wanted to, this is just a small bit of fun, but Max, I wanted to keep my promise, gave a chocolate to Max, and James, actually to you also.
Thank you.
So,
By giving the version number and the name correctly.
awesome. Wait, who else was getting chocolate? Oh, James. Excellent. Thank you so much, everybody. So we'll take a quick break and we'll be back at 11 a.m. sharp. That's about 14. Yeah. Miller.
Seconds.
Yes, go ahead, Miller.
I just want to point out one very important fact, and that is that the Raspberry Pi company, while they started in UK and Italy and so forth, they actually now manufacture some of their product in Kenya.
Oh.
Not the version you're using, but they do make a Raspberry Pi Pico. It's manufactured in Kenya.
Oh, that's
just so you
fantastic.
know.
I didn't know that.
Yes, and there is a reseller also here if you want to buy your own, but you're going to win instead. You don't need to buy it.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much for that piece of information. We've got a 13-minute break. Please be seated down. We'll hear from Places Labs, the system integrators, on merchant payments. That's a key interest of many adopters in the room. So please be back and seated by 11 a.m. and we'll get started with merchant payments. Thank you so much, everybody.